Hello there, and welcome to Waters Deeper Than Thought itself. Right now, beneath the waves you can see from any shoreline, beneath the familiar splash of surf and the dance of sunlight on water, lies a world so vast and alien that we have better maps of Mars than of our own ocean floor. More humans have walked on the moon than have visited the deepest trenches of our planet. Yet these hidden depths are not empty voids waiting to be conquered. They pulse with life stranger than science fiction, where creatures create their own light in eternal darkness and ecosystems thrive without ever seeing the sun. Tonight, we embark on a journey that will carry us through layers of ocean that mirror the layers of consciousness as you drift towards sleep. This is not a race to the bottom but a gradual surrender to depth, where each meter down brings you closer to the profound peace that waits in the abyss. The ocean holds all of time in its embrace. Every drop that surrounds us has fallen as rain on ancient forests, flowed through rivers older than memory, and returned countless times to these depths that know no hurry, no urgency, only the eternal rhythm of tides and currents. We'll begin in waters touched by sunlight, where familiar sea creatures dance in golden rays, but gradually, gently, we'll descend together through the twilight zones, where bioluminescence begins its quiet magic, past the midnight waters, where pressure becomes peace, down to the deepest trenches, where silence itself learns to sing. Where are you listening from tonight? What time has brought you to this moment of rest? It's wonderful to share this deep blue space with you, wherever you might be. Let's begin our descent into the depth, here, where sunlight still dances on waves, and the familiar world of air meets the beginning of mystery. We float gently in the epipelic zone. This is the ocean of postcards and daydreams, where dolphins leap through spray and schools of fish move like living mercury beneath the surface. The water here feels warm against imagined skin, heated by solar energy that has traveled 93 million miles to touch these waves with gold. Yet even here, in waters familiar enough for swimming, currents run deeper than imagination. The phytoplankton that surround us, invisible to the naked eye, are creating the very oxygen in your next breath. These microscopic wanderers drift in their billions, turning sunlight into life, with an alchemy older than continents, each one a tiny miracle of photosynthesis, each one connected to the vast web of existence that extends from this sunlit surface down to the deepest trenches. Diatoms with their intricate glass houses spin slowly in the current, their geometric perfection rivaling any human art. Dinoflagellates pulse with bioluminescent flashes when disturbed, creating trails of blue fire in shipwakes and breaking waves. These floating gardens produce more oxygen than all the world's forests combined, yet most people never see them, never know they exist. Feel the gentle rock of surface waves, the way water moves in endless patterns that never repeat exactly but never truly change. This is where we learn the ocean's first lesson, that movement and stillness can coexist, that constant motion can create perfect peace. The waves that touch your imagined skin have traveled across entire oceans carrying stories of distant shores, of storms weathered and calms embraced. Schools of tuna slice through these waters like living torpedoes, their bodies perfectly streamlined for speed, their blood runs hot, their hearts pump with the intensity of athletes, yet they move with an efficiency that no human machine can match. Manta rays glide overhead like underwater birds, their wingspans reaching 7 meters, feeding on the same microscopic life that feeds the smallest fish. Beneath us, temperature layers form invisible boundaries that shape the ocean's behavior. The thermocline separates the warm surface from the cool depths below, creating highways for migrating creatures and barriers that trap nutrients in the sunlit zone. This boundary layer acts like an underwater ceiling, concentrating life in the narrow band where light can penetrate. Jellyfish pulse through these golden waters with movements older than brains, their simple nervous systems responding to light and current with an elegance that seems almost thoughtful. Moon jellies drift like living parachutes, their translucent bells contracting in rhythms that match the pulse of tides. They are nearly water themselves, 95% liquid, yet they navigate with purpose through three-dimensional space. Sea turtles surface to breathe, their ancient eyes reflecting wisdom accumulated over decades of ocean wandering. They carry on their shells entire ecosystems of algae and small crustaceans, living islands that connect distant waters through their migrations. Some have been tracked crossing entire ocean basins, navigating by magnetic fields and chemical traces we are only beginning to understand. As we prepare to descend, notice how the light begins to change. The reds fade first, absorbed by the water, leaving behind a world painted in blues and greens. This is light learning to let go, teaching us how to release what we cannot carry into the depths ahead. The familiar yellows and oranges of surface light give way to the deeper blues that will accompany us on our journey downward. The boundary between this sunlit realm and the darkness below is not sharp but gradual. Like the transition between waking and sleep, we float at the edge of the known and unknown, between the world of air breathers and the realm of those who have never seen the sun. The epipelagic zone extends down to 200 meters, but already at 50 meters, the light has dimmed to half its surface intensity. Here begins our lesson in letting go, in trusting the water's embrace as we sink slowly into deeper mysteries. The ocean accepts all who enter with equal grace, supporting the weight of whales and the delicacy of jellyfish with the same patient buoyancy. Past 200 meters, we enter the ocean's twilight zone, the mesopelagic realm where day slowly dissolves into something deeper than night. Here, in this liquid dusk that knows no dawn, sunlight fades like consciousness at the edge of sleep, and we encounter one of nature's most magnificent phenomena, the daily vertical migration. Every evening as darkness claims the surface, billions of creatures begin their ascent from the depths. This is the largest movement of biomass on Earth, happening every night while the surface world sleeps. Lanternfish rise like living stars, their photophores twinkling in patterns unique to each species. These small fish, no larger than your hand, make up more biomass than all the world's commercial fisheries combined. Yet most people have never heard their names. Translucent jellies pulse upward through the water column, their bells contracting in slow, hypnotic rhythms that seem to match the beating of some vast underwater heart. Siphonophores drift past like living galaxies, their bodies stretching longer than blue whales, yet consisting of countless individual organisms working as one. They are the ocean's lesson in cooperation, proving that in the deep, survival often means learning to be part of something larger than yourself. Creatures the size of rice grains travel vertical distances, equivalent to a human walking several miles. Driven by hunger and the ancient safety of darkness, they feed in the rich surface waters under cover of night, then return to the deep before sunrise, carrying nutrients between the ocean's layers in a daily cycle. Older than mountains, this migration connects surface urbans to deep-sea survival, creating a biological elevator that moves energy through the entire water column. In this twilight realm, bioluminescence truly begins to bloom. Here, where sunlight can no longer penetrate, life creates its own illumination through chemical reactions, as elegant as they are efficient. The enzyme lucifers meets the molecule luciferin in the presence of oxygen, creating cold light without heat, beauty without waste. This biochemical process is so efficient that almost no energy is lost as heat, making it the most perfect form of lighting ever discovered. Watch the lanternfish as they pass, their belly lights creating counter-illumination that makes them invisible when viewed from below. Against the faint glow of distant surface light, their photophores match the exact intensity of the background, erasing their silhouettes from predators hunting upward. This biological stealth technology predates human camouflage by millions of years. See the vampire squid. Not vampires at all, but gentle filter feeders, wrap themselves in bioluminescent cloaks when threatened. Their name comes from their dark coloration and ability to turn inside out, revealing photophores like a living constellation. When disturbed, they create a spectacular light show, ejecting clouds of glowing mucus that confuse predators while they escape into the darkness. Witness the spectacular displays of deep-sea jellies, pulsing and flashing in languages we are only beginning to understand. Some communicate through patterns of light. Others use bioluminescence as a burglar alarm, attracting larger predators to whatever is attacking them. The deep ocean becomes a liquid night sky filled with moving stars that create their own constellations. Hatchetfish drift through this realm with blade-thin bodies and upward-facing eyes, their photophores arranged in precise rows along their silver flanks. They look like living mirrors, reflecting what little light filters down from above, while creating their own patterns below. Their eyes, huge relative to their body size, are perfectly adapted to detect the faintest glimmers in their twilight world. Bristlemouths, the most abundant vertebrates on Earth, swarm in numbers that stagger the imagination. There may be more individual bristlemouths in the ocean than all other fish species combined, yet they remain largely unknown to science. They rise each night in clouds, so dense they confuse sonar systems, creating false readings that puzzled researchers for decades. The pressure here would crush surface dwellers, yet these creatures move with fluid grace, their bodies perfectly adapted to this realm between light and dark. They are the twilight dwellers, citizens of the boundary between day and night, teaching us that transformation happens gradually, but the transition from one state to another can be beautiful in itself. Copods, tiny crustaceans no bigger than grains of rice, form the foundation of this migrating community. They graze on phytoplankton at the surface during darkness, then sink to deeper waters where they become food for larger creatures. Their oil-rich bodies are packets of concentrated energy, carrying surface productivity into the depths where photosynthesis is impossible. The twilight zone acts as a vast biological pump, moving carbon from the atmosphere into the deep ocean where it may remain stored for centuries. The creatures that feed at the surface and return to the depths carry atmospheric carbon with them, helping to regulate our planet's climate through their simple act of daily survival. Temperature here drops steadily with depth, creating layers that trap different communities at different levels. The 20-degree mark becomes a boundary that some species never cross, while others use temperature gradients to navigate through three-dimensional space. These thermal layers are invisible highways, guiding migrations and shaping the distribution of life in ways we are still discovering. As we drift deeper into this twilight realm, feeling the last traces of surface warmth fade away, we learn the ocean's second lesson: that beauty often emerges from adaptation to difficult circumstances, that the most spectacular displays of life often occur not in paradise, but at the boundaries where survival requires innovation and cooperation. At 1,000 meters, we cross the threshold into permanent night. Welcome to the bathypelagic zone, the midnight realm, where no photon of sunlight has ever penetrated, where darkness is not the absence of light, but a presence in itself, patient and profound and strangely comforting. Here swim the creatures of our deepest dreams and most ancient fears, transformed into wonder. The anglerfish drifts past with its glowing lure, not the monster of nightmares, but an elegant solution to the problem of finding food in infinite darkness. Its bioluminescent beacon dangles like a fallen star, attracting prey with false promises of light in a world that knows only black. The lure contains colonies of symbiotic bacteria that create this living lighthouse, a partnership between complex life and ancient microbes that predates human civilization by hundreds of millions of years. Female anglerfish are the giants of their species, some growing larger than basketballs, while males remain tiny their entire lives. When a male finds a female, he bites onto her body and never lets go. His tissues fuse with hers, his organs dissolve, until he becomes nothing more than a sperm-producing appendage. In a world where encounters are rare as falling stars, this extreme solution ensures that when reproduction becomes possible, nothing is left to chance. The vampire squid unfurls its cloak of webbed arms, revealing not a predator but one of the ocean's most gentle souls. When threatened, it turns itself inside out, displaying bioluminescent photophores like a living constellation, proving that even in the darkest places, beauty finds a way to shine. Its arms are connected by webs of skin that create a protective cloak, and when it retreats into this covering, only its large blue eyes remain visible, like sapphires in black velvet. This remarkable creature feeds on marine snow, the constant drift of organic particles from the surface world above. Using mucus-covered filaments, it collects these food particles with the patience of a gardener tending invisible crops. The vampire squid represents a third way of life, neither squid nor octopus, but something uniquely adapted to the perpetual scarcity of the deep. Giant siphonophores drift through this midnight realm like underwater auroras, their bodies stretching longer than blue whales, yet consisting of countless individual organisms working as one. They are the ocean's lesson in cooperation, colonial animals where each polyp has a specialized function. Some are dedicated to feeding, others to reproduction, still others to propulsion or defense. Together they create a single organism that can stretch over 40 meters through the water, longer than most whale species. These living chains pulse with bioluminescent signals, creating waves of light that ripple along their transparent bodies. When threatened, they can break apart into individual segments, each capable of surviving alone until conditions allow them to rejoin or form new colonies. They are both one and many, individual and collective, challenging our understanding of what constitutes a single organism. The pressure here exceeds 100 times that at the surface. Yet life has found ways not just to survive, but to thrive. Bodies become like living water, soft and flexible, bones replaced by cartilage that bends rather than breaks. Evolution has sculpted these creatures not for speed, but for efficiency, not for aggression but for patience. Their metabolisms run slowly, conserving every calorie in a world where the next meal might be weeks away. Swim bladders, the gas-filled organs that help surface fish control their buoyancy, would be crushed instantly at these depths. Instead, deep-sea fish have evolved watery tissues and reduced skeletal systems that maintain neutral buoyancy without the need for gas-filled spaces. Their flesh feels soft as jelly, their bones bend like rubber, yet they are perfectly adapted to their high-pressure world. Gulper eels drift through the darkness with mouths that can expand to engulf prey larger than themselves. Their stomachs stretch like balloons, allowing them to take advantage of any feeding opportunity in a world where encounters with food are rare and precious. When a meal does appear, these patient hunters can unhinge their massive jaws and swallow creatures that would seem impossibly large for their slender bodies. Food here is precious, falling like snow from the abundant waters above. Marine snow, the constant drift of organic matter from the surface, feeds these midnight dwellers with a gentleness that matches their pace. Dead plankton, fecal pellets, fragments of larger organisms, all slowly settle through the water column, creating a gentle blizzard of nutrition that sustains the deep-sea communities. Every meal is a gift, every calorie conserved with the wisdom of creatures who understand that in the deep, waste is death and patience is life. Some deep-sea fish can survive for months without feeding, their metabolism slowing to barely detectable levels during times of scarcity. When food does arrive, they can consume meals equivalent to half their body weight, storing energy in specialized tissues for the lean times ahead. Temperature hovers just above freezing, yet the water never freezes, kept liquid by salt and pressure in defiance of surface physics. This is water in its most patient form, unmoved by seasons, untouched by weather, flowing in currents that began before human memory and will continue long after human forgetting. The stable temperature creates a world without seasons, where time is measured not in days or years, but in the slow accumulation of marine snow and the patient circulation of ancient currents. Bioluminescence reaches its artistic peak in this zone, where every flash of light carries meaning in a world of perpetual darkness. Lanternfish create complex patterns of photophores along their sides, species-specific arrangements that help them recognize potential mates in the vast darkness. Deep-sea jellies pulse with hypnotic rhythms, their transparent bodies becoming living mandalas of light. The Midnight Zone teaches us that life does not need familiar comforts to flourish, that beauty can emerge from the most challenging circumstances, that patience and efficiency often matter more than speed and power. In this realm of eternal night, we learn to appreciate a different kind of seeing, one that relies not on reflected light, but on the inner illumination that life creates for itself. Beyond 4,000 meters, we enter a landscape as vast and alien as the surface of another planet, the abyssal plains. These underwater deserts stretch for thousands of kilometers, covered in sediments so fine they feel like silk, composed of microscopic shells, fragments of ancient continents, and dust from outer space that has drifted down through water and time to rest in layers millions of years thick. Yet these seeming wastelands bloom with hidden life more diverse and abundant than early scientists ever imagined. Sea cucumbers graze across the seafloor like underwater cattle, processing sediment with methodical patience, their bodies perfectly adapted to a life of gentle consumption. They are the earthworms of the abyss, quietly recycling nutrients in darkness, absolute, moving through the soft mud with muscular waves that ripple along their elongated bodies. These holothurians, as scientists call them, can grow longer than baseball bats, their leathery skin protecting them from the crushing pressure, while their specialized feeding apparatus filters organic matter from the sediment. They leave behind trails of processed mud, creating pathways across the seafloor that can be followed for kilometers. Some species form vast herds, hundreds of individuals moving together across the abyssal plains in migrations that span seasons. Strange fish rest on tripod fins like living sculptures, motionless for hours or days, sensing vibrations in the water with a patience that makes human timescales seem frantic. These tripod fish have evolved elongated pectoral and pelvic fins that act as stilts, lifting their bodies above the sediment, while they wait for prey to swim within striking distance. They are the philosophers of the deep, teaching us that stillness can be a form of action, that waiting can be a way of being. Their eyes have adapted to the eternal darkness in remarkable ways. Some species have developed tubular eyes that point upward, scanning for the silhouettes of prey against the faint glow of bioluminescence from above. Others have dispensed with eyes altogether, relying instead on lateral line systems that detect the smallest water movements, chemical sensors that taste the presence of food, and hearing so acute they can detect the heartbeat of a small crustacean from meters away. Glass sponges rise from the abyssal plains like underwater skyscrapers, their silica skeletons forming reefs that can live for thousands of years. Some of these ancient creatures were already old when humans first walked upright, their slow metabolism allowing them to persist through ice ages and mass extinctions with a resilience that humbles our hurried lives. They filter vast quantities of seawater through their bodies, extracting bacteria and organic particles with an efficiency that rivals any human technology. These sponge gardens create three-dimensional habitats in an otherwise flat landscape. Fish shelter among their spicules, crustaceans find refuge in their cavities, and entire communities develop around these patient filter feeders. Some glass sponge reefs stretch for kilometers, creating underwater mountain ranges built not of rock, but of living tissue and silica needles. Here we encounter one of the ocean's most extraordinary phenomena, whale falls. When a great whale dies and sinks to the abyss, it becomes an oasis in the desert, a feast that can sustain specialized communities for decades. The descent of a blue whale carcass delivers as much organic matter to the seafloor as typically falls over several square kilometers in an entire year. First come the mobile scavengers, hagfish and sleeper sharks that strip away the soft tissue with methodical efficiency. Hagfish, primitive creatures for hundreds of millions of years, tie themselves in knots to gain leverage as they burrow into the whale's flesh. Their slime production can clog the gills of potential competitors, giving them exclusive access to the bounty. Sleeper sharks, moving like ghosts through the darkness, arrive from distances measured in hundreds of kilometers, following chemical trails to the feast. These massive predators, some growing longer than great whites, move with deliberate slowness through the frigid water, their metabolism adapted to a world where energy conservation means survival. Then bone-eating worms, Osedax species discovered only in recent decades, bore into the skeleton itself. These remarkable creatures have no mouths, no stomachs, no traditional digestive systems. Instead, they secrete acid to dissolve the bone and rely on symbiotic bacteria in specialized root-like structures to digest whale oil with chemical precision. The females anchor themselves to the bones, while microscopic males live inside their bodies by the hundreds, turning whale falls into strange underwater harems. These whale falls are islands of abundance in a desert of scarcity, supporting ecosystems found nowhere else on Earth. Species evolve specifically to exploit these rare bonanzas, timing their life cycles to the slow decay of giants. New worms, unique crustaceans and specialized bacteria appear at each whale fall, many of them endemic to these ephemeral oases. The bones themselves can support unique communities for 50 years or more, proving that even in death, the great whales continue to give life. Bacteria that specialize in breaking down lipids stored in whalebone create chemical gardens that support clams, mussels, and other organisms found nowhere else in the deep sea. These communities exist on geological time, with succession patterns that unfold over decades. Xenophyophores drift across this landscape like living puzzles, single-celled organisms larger than dinner plates that challenge our understanding of what a cell can be. They build nests from sediment and debris, creating structures so large they can be seen from research submarines, proving that in the deep even the simplest forms of life can achieve complexity that defies surface logic. These giants among single cells move through the sediment like microscopic bulldozers, engulfing bacteria, organic particles, and even small animals. Their tests, intricate structures built from carefully selected sediment grains, can persist on the seafloor for years after the organism dies, creating landmarks in an otherwise featureless landscape. The abyssal plains are also where we find some of Earth's oldest water, liquid that last touched the surface centuries ago in polar regions, now flowing through the deep in currents so slow they measure time in human generations. This ancient water carries the chemical memory of climates long past, connecting the abyss to the atmosphere in cycles vast and patient. Bottom-dwelling fish like snailfish and cusk eels, navigate this world of perpetual darkness with senses we can barely imagine. Their bodies are soft as jelly, their bones cartilaginous, their proteins specially adapted to function under pressures that would denature ordinary enzymes. They represent evolution's most patient experiments, life forms crafted over millions of years to thrive in conditions that seem impossible. In this vast underwater desert, time moves differently. Processes that take hours at the surface unfold over seasons here. Growth rates slow to imperceptible levels. Reproduction becomes an event measured in years rather than seasons. Yet in this apparent emptiness, in this seeming desolation, life persists with a determination that speaks to its deepest nature, not to conquer but to endure, not to dominate, but to adapt, not to hurry but to wait with the infinite patience of the abyss itself. Scattered across the abyssal plains like campfires in the cosmic darkness, hydrothermal vents create some of the most extraordinary ecosystems on Earth. Here, where the planet's molten heart meets the crushing cold of the deep ocean, life thrives in conditions that seem to violate every rule we thought governed biology. From black smoker chimneys, superheated water erupts at temperatures exceeding 400 degrees Celsius, hot enough to melt lead, yet somehow supporting communities more diverse than many tropical rainforests. The water is acidic, toxic, laden with hydrogen sulfide and heavy metals that would kill surface life instantly. Yet around these hellish fountains, life not only survives, but flourishes with an abundance that shocked their discoverers in 1977. Giant tube worms sway in the current like underwater redwoods, their crimson plumes filtering nutrients from water poisonous to most life on Earth. These riftia pachyptilla can grow taller than adult humans, their white tubes providing structure, while their bright red crowns bloom like flowers in the toxic flow. They have no mouths, no stomachs, no digestive systems as we understand them. Instead, they house symbiotic bacteria in specialized organs called trophosome, farming chemosynthetic microbes that convert toxic chemicals into usable energy. These tube worms are living partnerships between complex multicellular life and ancient bacterial wisdom, their relationship so intimate that neither can survive without the other. The bacteria receive shelter and chemical raw materials while the worms receive all their nutrition from bacterial metabolism. It is a marriage of convenience that has lasted for millions of years, proving that cooperation can triumph even in the most hostile environments. Vent crabs scuttle through mineral gardens with the fearlessness of creatures perfectly adapted to their harsh home. Drythogratha perdron. The vent crab has white shells that reflect the glow of heated water, and their eyes have evolved to detect the faint infrared radiation that signals fresh volcanic activity. They are the gardeners of these chemical oases, maintaining the delicate balance between life and death at the very edge of possibility. These crabs feed on bacteria mats, dead tube worms and occasional organic matter that drifts down from the surface world far above. Their claws are specially adapted to scrape bacterial films from rock surfaces, while their digestive systems can process the unusual chemistry of vent organisms. They move fearlessly through water that would cook surface creatures instantly, their physiology perfectly tuned to their extreme environment. Pompeii worms colonize the sides of chimneys, living closer to scalding water than any other complex animals on Earth. Their backs can withstand temperatures of 80 degrees Celsius, while their heads remain in cooler water, creating a temperature gradient across their bodies that would be fatal to any surface organism. They wear coats of bacteria like living fur, insulating themselves with microbes that thrive in heat. These ecosystems exist in geological time, blooming and vanishing as the Earth's crust shifts beneath them. A vent field may thrive for decades or centuries, then go cold forever when tectonic forces shift the flow of heat. The communities that depend on these oases have evolved remarkable strategies for finding new homes across the vast abyssal distances. Vent larvae can drift for months in the deep currents, following chemical trails through thousands of kilometers of darkness, to find new hydrothermal fields. Some species have evolved to detect the mineral signatures of active vents from great distances, navigating the abyss with senses we are only beginning to understand. Their larvae must survive in the nutrient-poor waters between vents, feeding on marine snow and their own yolk reserves until they encounter the chemical signals that indicate home. The stepping stone hypothesis suggests that vents act as islands in the deep sea, connected by larval dispersal across abyssal distances. Species hop from vent to vent over evolutionary time, maintaining genetic connections across ocean basins through their remarkable ability to survive in the deep-sea desert between oases. Cold seeps represent another kind of chemical oasis, where hydrocarbons and hydrogen sulfide seep slowly from the seafloor without the dramatic temperature extremes of hot vents. These cold chemical gardens support their own unique communities. Clams with chemosynthetic bacteria in their gills, mussels that farm methane-loving symbionts inside their tissues. The seeps can persist for thousands of years, creating stable oases in the deep-sea desert. Vast bacterial mats carpet the seafloor around cold seeps like living snow, processing methane and hydrogen sulfide with metabolisms older than oxygen-breathing life. These mats create underwater meadows of white and orange filaments, ecosystems built entirely on chemistry rather than sunlight. Polychaete worms graze on these bacterial gardens like underwater sheep, their specialized feeding apparatus perfectly adapted to harvest microbial production. The discovery of these chemosynthetic ecosystems revolutionized our understanding of life's possibilities. Here was proof that ecosystems could exist entirely independent of solar energy, that life could thrive on chemistry alone. These vents became our windows into alternative biospheres, possible models for life on other worlds where sunlight never shines. Europa, Jupiter's ice-covered moon, may harbor similar ecosystems beneath its frozen crust. Enceladus, Saturn's small moon, shoots plumes of water into space that contain hydrogen sulfide and organic molecules. The chemistry of these distant worlds mirrors what we find at Earth's hydrothermal vents, suggesting that life might flourish in the dark oceans of the outer solar system. The bacteria that power these ecosystems are among Earth's most ancient forms of life, possibly representing the original metabolism that allowed life to begin in conditions similar to these vents. Archaea, primitive microbes that thrive in extreme conditions, dominate many vent communities. Their biochemistry operates at temperatures and chemical concentrations that would destroy ordinary life, yet they flourish with an efficiency that rivals photosynthesis. In their chemical processes we glimpse echoes of the earliest life on Earth, reminders that our oxygen-breathing, photosynthesis-dependent biosphere is perhaps not the only way life can organize itself. These thermal oases suggest that life's creativity knows no bounds, that given time and chemical energy, biology can find solutions to problems that seem impossible. The minerals deposited by hydrothermal vents create landscapes of alien beauty. Sulfide chimneys grow like underwater skyscrapers, their walls encrusted with metals more valuable than gold. Copper, zinc, silver and rare earth elements concentrate around vents in quantities that attract mining interest, raising questions about how to balance scientific discovery with resource extraction in these unique ecosystems. As we drift through these gardens of impossible life, we learn that the Earth is more creative than we imagined, that life is more persistent than we believed, that even in the most hostile environments, beauty and cooperation can emerge. The thermal vents remind us that life does not require comfort to flourish, only chemistry, time, and the infinite creativity of evolution working at the boundaries of the possible. Below 6,000 meters, we enter the Hadal Zone, named for Hades, realm of the dead. Though here we find not death, but life persisting in Earth's most extreme environments. These oceanic trenches cut deeper into our planet than mountains rise above it, creating pressures that exceed 1,000 times those at sea level. Yet even here, in conditions that would instantly destroy any surface creature, life finds ways to endure. The Mariana Trench, deepest of all known places, descends nearly 11 kilometers below the surface. So deep that if Mount Everest were placed at its bottom, the peak would still lie over a mile underwater. The pressure here exceeds that found on the surface of Venus, crushing with the force of 50 jumbo jets pressing down on every square meter. Yet snailfish glide through these crushing depths with the grace of creatures perfectly at home in the impossible. These Hadal snailfish represent evolution's most extreme experiment in pressure adaptation. Pseudoliparus species discovered in recent expeditions hold the record as the deepest living fish ever recorded, found thriving at depths exceeding 8,000 meters. Their bones are soft as cartilage, their flesh nearly gelatinous, their proteins folded in configurations that resist the crushing force trying to collapse every molecule in their bodies. The cellular machinery of these fish operates under pressures that would denature ordinary proteins instantly. Their enzymes have evolved specialized structures that maintain function under extreme compression, while their cell membranes contain unique fatty acid compositions that remain flexible rather than solidifying under pressure. They are living proof that life's ingenuity has no limits, that given enough time, Evolution can craft solutions to problems that seem unsolvable. Amphipods the size of small shrimp thrive in these ultimate depths in numbers that astonish their discoverers. When bait is lowered into the deepest trenches, these creatures swarm to it in thousands, proving that even at the bottom of the world, life can achieve abundance. Harundelagigus, the deepest dwelling amphipod known to science, has been found in the Challenger Deep itself, feeding on organic matter that drifts down from the world above. These crustaceans have developed remarkable adaptations to their high-pressure world. Their exoskeletons remain flexible under compression, while specialized proteins in their muscles allow them to move efficiently despite the crushing environment. They are the cleanup crew of the deepest places, recycling the organic matter that settles into the trenches like snow falling into mountain valleys. The trenches themselves are active geology in motion, subduction zones where oceanic plates slide beneath continents in processes that build mountains and trigger earthquakes. The Peru-Chile Trench, the Japan Trench, the Tonga Trench, all represent places where the Earth's crust folds and fractures, creating these ultimate canyons in the seafloor. The life here has evolved, not just to survive crushing pressure, but to thrive in an environment of constant geological upheaval. Trenches are born, grow, and sometimes vanish as the Earth's crust reshapes itself over millions of years. The communities that inhabit these deepest places must adapt not only to extreme pressure, but to the shifting geology beneath them. Earthquakes regularly reshape their habitat, landslides cascade down trench walls, and the very shape of their world changes with tectonic forces beyond imagination. Xenophyophores reach their greatest diversity in these deepest places, creating bizarre single-celled structures that can grow larger than dinner plates. Syringamena fragilissima, one of the largest single cells known to science, constructs delicate tests from sediment particles carefully selected and arranged. Some xenophyophores create elaborate branching structures that house other smaller organisms, becoming living apartment buildings in the deep. They are the architects of the abyss, proving that even single cells can create complexity that challenges our understanding of what life can achieve. Their tests persist on the seafloor long after the organisms die, creating lasting monuments to single-celled engineering in environments where nothing else can build permanent structures. Recently discovered hydrothermal vent fields in some trenches support unique ecosystems found nowhere else on Earth. The Champagne vent field in the Mariana Trench combines the extreme pressure of the Hadadol zone with the chemical energy of hydrothermal activity, creating environments so extreme they stretch the boundaries of what we consider habitable. Yet life thrives here too, in forms so specialized they exist nowhere else in the known universe. These deepest vents host bacteria and archaea that operate under pressures exceeding 1100 atmospheres, while processing chemicals at temperatures that would cook surface organisms. They represent the absolute limits of life as we know it, existing at the intersection of maximum pressure, chemical extremes, and geological violence. The water in these trenches is ancient beyond measure. Some of it has not seen the surface for over 1,000 years. It carries the chemical signatures of past climates, holding memories of ice ages and warm periods in its molecular structure. To sample this water is to touch the ocean's deepest memories, to hold in laboratory bottles the liquid history of our planet's changing moods. This ancient water moves through the trenches in currents so slow they're barely detectable, creating isolated pockets where evolution can proceed independently for millions of years. Some trench communities may be more genetically isolated than populations on different continents, leading to levels of endemism that rival island ecosystems. Scientists continue to discover new species in every expedition to these depths. Each dive reveals life forms that challenge our understanding of biology's limits, creatures so precisely adapted to their extreme environment that they represent unique solutions to the problem of existence at Earth's pressure limits. Barobacter and other pressure-loving bacteria thrive in conditions that would instantly kill surface microbes, while specialized viruses infect these extremophiles in cycles we're only beginning to understand. The deepest fish, the deepest crustaceans, the most pressure-resistant organisms on Earth, all call these trenches home. They live in a world where the normal rules of biology bend, and sometimes break, where evolution has pushed life to its absolute limits, and found that those limits are far more flexible than anyone imagined. In these deepest places we confront the humbling reality that our planet still holds secrets, that despite all our technology and curiosity, the Earth can still surprise us with life in places we thought impossible. The trenches remind us that we live on a world more mysterious than we imagined, more patient than we knew, more alive than we ever dreamed. As we drift through these ultimate depths, surrounded by pressure that would crush submarines like empty cans, we witness life's greatest triumph over adversity. Here, where the planet's crust folds toward its molten core, where the weight of the entire ocean presses down with geological force, life persists with a determination that speaks to its deepest nature, not merely to survive but to flourish, not just to endure, but to diversify and thrive in conditions that redefine what we thought possible. Deep beneath the surface chaos of waves and storms, the ocean holds its memories in currents that flow with the patience of geological time. These are the deep waters that connect all oceans, carrying chemical messages between polar ice and tropical warmth, between past and future, in circulation patterns that span centuries. The great thermohaline circulation, the ocean's conveyor belt, moves water through the abyss on journeys longer than human lifespans. A drop of water sinking in the North Atlantic may not see sunlight again for 500 years. Traveling through the deep Pacific, around Antarctica, through the Indian Ocean, carrying with it the dissolved breath of long-dead forests, the chemical signatures of ancient atmospheres. These currents are the ocean's bloodstream, invisible rivers flowing through the deep that regulate our planet's climate with more power than all human technology combined. They carry heat from the equator toward the poles, transport nutrients from the deep to fertilize surface waters, and move vast quantities of carbon between atmosphere and abyss, in cycles that stabilize our planet's temperature over millennia. The formation of these deep waters begins in only a few places on Earth. In the Labrador Sea and the Greenland Sea, winter storms and Arctic winds cool surface waters until they become dense enough to sink. This process, called deep water formation, is like the ocean taking a breath, inhaling surface water rich with atmospheric gases and exhaling it into the deep where it may circulate for centuries. Antarctic bottom water forms around the frozen continent where sea ice formation leaves behind supercooled, salt-enriched water that sinks to the very bottom of the ocean basins. This water is so dense it flows along the seafloor like an underwater river, spreading northward through all the ocean basins, carrying Antarctic cold toward the equator in currents that move with glacial patience. The Antarctic Circumpolar Current, largest of all ocean currents, flows around Antarctica with the force of 130 Amazon rivers, connecting Atlantic, Pacific, and Indian Oceans in an endless ring of moving water. It has flowed unobstructed for millions of years, helping to keep Antarctica frozen and maintaining the temperature gradients that drive weather patterns around the globe. This current transports more water than all the world's rivers combined, moving 150 million cubic meters of seawater every second. Deep water formation in the North Atlantic creates what oceanographers call North Atlantic deep water, a massive water mass that flows southward along the western Atlantic basin, carrying oxygen and nutrients from the surface into the deep. This water mass is so large and persistent that it maintains its chemical identity as it flows through the Atlantic, around Africa, and into the Indian and Pacific Oceans. The meridional overturning circulation carries warm surface water northward in the Atlantic, while returning cold deep water southward, a vast heat engine that keeps Europe warmer than its latitude would suggest. This circulation has weakened and strengthened throughout Earth's history, triggering ice ages when it slows, enabling warming periods when it accelerates. The Gulf Stream is the surface expression of this deep circulation, but the real engine lies in the abyssal depths. In the Pacific, the deepest waters are over 1,000 years old, carrying chemical memories of medieval climates in their molecular structure. These ancient waters rise slowly in the North Pacific, bringing nutrients to the surface that support some of the ocean's richest fisheries. The salmon that return to Pacific rivers depend on currents set in motion before Columbus sailed, fed by nutrients carried up from trenches deeper than continents are high. The deep waters also carry the signatures of past life, isotopic ratios that tell stories of ancient carbon cycles, chemical traces of ice ages and warm periods preserved in molecular detail. Scientists read these waters like books, deciphering the history of climate change written in the chemistry of deep circulation. The ocean is our planet's memory bank, storing in its deepest layers the chemical record of how our world has changed over geological time. Ocean trenches channel these ancient currents through gaps in underwater mountain ranges, through passages carved by flowing water over millions of years. The Denmark Strait overflow carries Arctic water into the deep Atlantic with the force of 50 Mississippi rivers, cascading over the Greenland-Scotland ridge like an underwater waterfall. The Weimar Channel guides Antarctic water northward through the Atlantic Basin, while the Samoan Passage allows the deepest waters to flow from the Pacific into the Indian Ocean. These current systems create oases of life in the deep ocean desert, where bottom waters flow over ridges and through passages. They create upwelling that brings nutrients to otherwise barren areas. Deep-sea corals cluster in these regions of enhanced flow, while specialized fish communities develop around the unique conditions these currents create. The currents themselves become highways for deep-sea life, connecting distant ecosystems and enabling the dispersal of larvae across ocean basins. The Mediterranean outflow represents another type of deep circulation, where warm, salty water from the Mediterranean Sea flows into the Atlantic, creating a distinct water mass that can be traced for thousands of kilometers. This outflow demonstrates how smaller seas contribute to global circulation, adding their own chemical signatures to the great mixing bowl of the world ocean. Tidal forces in the deep ocean create additional currents that mix waters vertically, breaking down the layered structure that would otherwise keep deep waters isolated. Internal tides, waves that propagate along density boundaries within the ocean, can be larger than surface waves, though they remain invisible from above. These internal waves break against underwater mountains and ridges, creating turbulence that mixes nutrients upward and oxygen downward. The stability of these circulation patterns has shaped evolution in the deep sea. Many abyssal species depend on the predictable flow of nutrients and oxygen carried by these ancient currents. The slow, steady nature of deep circulation has allowed stable ecosystems to develop over millions of years, creating refugia where ancient lineages persist virtually unchanged. Climate change is now altering these ancient circulation patterns in ways we are only beginning to understand. As polar ice melts and surface waters warm, the density differences that drive deep circulation may weaken, potentially slowing the great conveyor belt that has operated steadily for millennia. The deep ocean's memory may be changing, writing new chapters in the chemical history of our planet's circulation system. In the vast reaches of the deep ocean, mysteries persist that challenge our understanding of life, geology, and the very nature of our planet. Strange sounds echo through the abyss, acoustic phenomena that tantalize scientists and capture imaginations worldwide. The bloop, detected in 1997, was a low-frequency sound so loud it was recorded by hydrophones thousands of kilometers apart. For years its origin remained unknown, spawning theories of unknown species or geological phenomena beyond current understanding. The sound was unlike anything in the acoustic databases, lasting over a minute and exhibiting a frequency signature that suggested something massive moving through the deep ocean. Later identified as the sound of ice breaking away from Antarctic glaciers, the bloop reminded us how much we still do not understand about ocean acoustics. The discovery that such a massive sound could travel across entire ocean basins revealed the ocean's capacity to carry information over distances that dwarf terrestrial communication. Yet the fact that scientists initially could not identify this sound demonstrates how acoustically alien the deep ocean remains. The Julia, detected in 1999, created another acoustic mystery. This 20-second-long sound was recorded by sensors over 5,000 kilometers apart, suggesting a source of enormous power somewhere in the deep Pacific. Its spectral characteristics resembled biological sounds, but no known organism could produce vocalizations of such magnitude. The sound has never been detected again, leaving its origin permanently mysterious. The slowdown, recorded multiple times since 1997, presents yet another puzzle. This sound appears to be slowing in frequency over time, as if some massive process in the deep ocean is gradually winding down. Scientists theorize it may be geological, the groaning of tectonic plates under immense pressure, but no definitive explanation has emerged. The train, aptly named for its resemblance to locomotive sounds, echoes through certain ocean basins with mechanical regularity. These sounds might be geological, caused by the movement of massive underwater landslides, or the settling of sediments, but their periodic nature suggest processes we have not yet identified. Unexplained sonar returns suggest massive objects moving through the deep, possibly geological features we have not mapped, or biological phenomena we cannot yet categorize. The ocean's vastness means that large areas remain completely unexplored, holding secrets that may rewrite our understanding of marine life. Some sonar contacts track objects larger than blue whales moving at depths and speeds that challenge our assumptions about what lives in the abyss. Brine pools, underwater lakes of super salty water, create some of the ocean's strangest landscapes. These hypersaline pools sit in depressions on the seafloor, so dense they do not mix with the surrounding seawater. Yet have visible shores and waves, creating the surreal sight of lakes beneath the sea. The Orca Basin in the Gulf of Mexico contains water so salty that objects sink through it as if through air, while specialized bacteria thrive in conditions that would kill most marine life. Life around these brine pools is often extreme, adapted to salt concentrations that would dehydrate ordinary marine organisms within minutes. Mussels cluster around the edges where fresh seawater meets brine, farming chemosynthetic bacteria that can process the chemical gradients. These underwater oases demonstrate that even within the ocean there can be environments more alien than the surface of other planets. Methane hydrates, crystalline cages of ice and gas that form under pressure, represent both mystery and potential danger. These deposits could store massive amounts of energy, equivalent to twice all known fossil fuel reserves, but their destabilization could release greenhouse gases in quantities that might dramatically alter our climate. We are only beginning to understand their distribution and behavior, with new deposits discovered regularly in unexpected locations. Deep-sea gigantism puzzles biologists with its consistent patterns and unclear mechanisms. Giant tube worms, colossal squid, enormous sea spiders, and isopods all exceed the sizes of their shallow water relatives by factors that seem to defy explanation. Theories abound, from reduced predation pressure to slower metabolisms that allow longer growth periods, but the mechanisms driving this gigantism remain unclear. The discovery rate for new species in the deep ocean continues to accelerate rather than slow down. Every expedition reveals creatures that challenge our taxonomies and understanding of life's possibilities. Some are so unlike anything known that they require new classifications, new ways of thinking about what constitutes an organism. Recent expeditions have discovered fish with antifreeze proteins, worms that breathe through their skin, and bacteria that eat rock. Viral ecology in the deep ocean remains largely unexplored territory. These invisible ecosystems of viruses, bacteria and archaea cycle nutrients and energy in ways we are only beginning to understand. Some researchers suggest that viral interactions in the deep ocean might influence global climate patterns, but the connections remain largely theoretical. In meditation traditions around the world, sinking into water represents surrender, letting go, the dissolution of ego into something larger. The ocean becomes a teacher of non-attachment, showing us how to exist without grasping, how to move without forcing, how to be present without insisting on understanding. Floating meditation practices deliberately invoke the weightlessness of aquatic suspension, the release from gravitational constraint that mirrors the release from mental constraint. The deep ocean also reflects our collective unconscious fears and longings. It represents the unknown aspects of ourselves, the parts of human nature that remain wild, untamed by civilization. Carl Jung wrote about the ocean as a symbol of the unconscious mind, vast, largely unexplored, containing both treasures and terrors. The creatures we find in the depths often seem to emerge from dream logic, rather than evolutionary biology, as if the ocean is dreaming us while we sleep. Yet perhaps most significantly, the deep connects us to something larger than individual human experience. It reminds us that we are part of a living planet, and our fate is intertwined with the health of systems we barely understand. The oxygen we breathe, the climate we depend on, the water cycle that sustains all terrestrial life, all depend on processes that unfold in the deep ocean. To know the abyss is to understand our place, not as masters of nature, but as participants in something ancient and ongoing. In our age of environmental crisis, the deep ocean offers both warning and hope. Warning, because human activities now reach into the deepest trenches, because the chemistry of the abyss is changing in response to surface activities. Hope, because the deep represents resilience, adaptation, the capacity of life to persist through conditions that seem impossible. The creatures of the abyss have survived mass extinctions, ice ages, and asteroid impacts. They carry within their ancient lineages the memory of how to endure, and so we begin our slow ascent toward the surface of sleep, carrying with us the peace of the abyss, the patience of ancient currents, the gentle wisdom of creatures that thrive in darkness. Like deep-sea organisms rising slowly to avoid decompression, we return gradually to the realm of dreams, bringing the ocean's lessons into the landscape of rest. The journey we have taken together exists in time and space, but also in the deeper jabbercry of imagination, where scientific fact becomes poetry, where the alien becomes familiar, where the vast distances of the deep ocean collapse into the intimate space between heartbeats. You have traveled further tonight than most humans ever will, not in distance but in understanding, not in pressure but in peace. Somewhere in the Mariana Trench, a snailfish glides through crushing darkness, its translucent body perfectly adapted to pressures that would destroy any surface dweller. Somewhere in the mid-Atlantic ridge, new vents bloom with impossible life, creating oases of abundance in the desert of the deep. Somewhere in the vast abyssal plains, currents older than human civilization continue their patient circulation, carrying the planet's memory through liquid space. Sleep comes more easily when you remember that you are part of something patient and vast and eternal. The same forces that move the deepest trenches move through your dreams. Rest now in that connection, knowing that the ocean sleeps too, deeply and completely, as the abyss itself, dark and peaceful as the endless blue that holds all stories, all secrets, all rest.